And welcome back to Open Line. We're glad you're joining us this evening. This is Ask an Expert, and it's in the legal field that we are highlighting this evening. One of our very favorites and your favorite guest with us all hour long, Kevin Kennedy from the Kennedy Law Firm right here in Tennessee. If you do have one of those questions, the number's on your screen, 737-7587. No matter what it's about, whether or not you're talking about estate planning, drawing up a will, if you need to contact an attorney because you felt like you've been wronged, possibly by a hospital, possibly by the insurance company. No matter what that legal question is, give us a call tonight. There is the number on your screen. Kevin, you know, we were talking a little bit about what you can and can't do, like if you've been pulled over, or you're involved in a traffic accident. What about if you're involved with, like, because we have a lot of calls often, something with your neighbor? There's a problem with the neighbor. Are you able to then, obviously, if whether they come to your property, you go to their property, and there is a problem, to again videotape or tape that?
Yes. And one of the things you really like to avoid is conflict, because he who wins a battle doesn't necessarily mean he's going to win the war. And some people have no boundaries. So people like you and I want to follow the law. But if you came home and there's sugar in your gas, and you came home and your antifreeze pouring in a pan near your house, you say, hey, y'all aren't playing fair. Be aware of it. And document. I'd understand, and I'd have a private setting with a lawyer and discuss all my options and evaluate the pros and cons of every move. I think one of the things that we've been good at is, it's been said, never ask a question unless you know the answer. But the truth is, you can ask any question, but you have to be prepared for the answers they give us. So if they say this, we're for this. If they say that, you have to think 3 steps into it. People are not normally trained, but lawyers are. So I would discuss them. And then, quite frankly, you'll hear me say this all the time. Here it is. You're going to have to call it left or right. And sometimes it's better to do nothing and just lay back and watch. I usually like a proactive approach. And when I say nothing, a proactive approach is we've evaluated everything, and then we have a timeline. Then we'll have it planned out. Then we'll move.
Okay, I've got a question for you, Kevin. I often, when I have a friend or a family member who's involved in something and it's like it could be a legal situation, I come to you and ask that question. I had a friend recently who was involved in a traffic accident. About 6 cars were, it was kind of a chain reaction.
Trouble, yes.
Yeah. So what is your legal right if you were just, you know, they literally were just involved. They did not cause it. They were just part of the pileup.
Right.
What are your rights there?
You got to get a lawyer. Far too complicated. You know what everybody's going to do? Everybody's going to throw it on the next one. This guy says, hey, you hit me, I'm going to sue you. That's why we must have insurance. That's why we must have uninsured motorists. It's as much to protect you as it is to get money out of the injuries that you've already experienced. But the problem is, I want to be the first one there. If we were all riding and they came in and busted this room, I want to get my own lawyer. I'm telling you, Chuck, get yours. And the guy said, hey, we didn't do anything. We're just going to roll. Remember, those lawyers are going to go in there and they'll say, we're going to roll on those guys. You say, hey, what happened? It's already, and they say, how'd Chuck get out of it? Hey, what about those charges? That's the real world. And in that pileup, you need, sometimes there's only $25,000 worth of insurance. You're trying to get your part of that insurance policy because somebody's going to come up short.
And you've also taught me one thing is you also need to do your homework.
Yeah.
You need to do it immediately, which if you're involved in an accident, and hopefully it wasn't a serious one, my friend, he was able, but he didn't, I mean, he was fine, but he didn't video anything. And I said, you know, you really should have done that, just because the more you have, the more homework you've done.
This guy was in the court. He was up there representing himself. He told the judge, you know, I'm pretty good at the law. And we're all sitting back there. He said, I know I've got a year in Tennessee. Well, all the other cases, the people that have already been settled, the money's distributed. Yeah, you had a year, but you've lost a lot of your rights because you weren't first. It's an old saying, let's get first.
That's what you need to do. Now, the other thing, when it comes to people say, well, do I hire a lawyer or not? One of the things that people have found time and time again is that actually, because the law is so complicated, it's more expensive not to hire a lawyer.
Say it again, Chuck. One thing that I've learned, and you know, I have children, and I have grandchildren, I hope they will learn from their dad and family member that if it's better to go get the lawyer. You'll sleep better, and so much of the time, if you could have a conversation with me, I have protected your family beyond measure. If you will continue just to listen to this show. Now, people say, well, I like to watch other things. I like to watch comedy. Well, it won't be funny if you miscalculated on a legal problem for you and your family. Who do we trust? I've always said this, get a lawyer you can trust. I heard a guy tell me one time, he said, you need a preacher you can believe in and a lawyer you can trust. Now, I've been a lawyer all these many years and decades, had lots of lawyers work for me, solved lots of problems, and seen some that really went bad. What did I know? Proactive approach. So if something breaks tonight, I'm telling everybody, let's get to the lawyer. I don't really want to, Chuck has me on speed dial. But that's pretty smart, Chuck. I guess I brainwashed you.
Well, you got to do that. And I realized too, recently, my father passed earlier this year, and as we've dealt with, everything that you go through with all the legal ramifications of the will and how it gets divided up and that sort of thing, we have had an incredible lawyer in Texas. My dad was from Texas. But there were so many questions. We had no idea how to even interpret the question.
Come on.
Thank goodness for the lawyer, because that lawyer has helped lead us through, figure out things where it was with his, portfolio, whether it was the house, the land.
Well, I would say I'm skilled in the law. There's still things that I don't know, but I do know the theory. And I know there's going to be some statutes, there's going to be some time frames. And you said, well, that's not fair. And I still think it's really not fair. We should be trained in school from children all the way through high school about the law. They hold us responsible. How are you supposed to follow if you've never been informed? That's one of the pitfalls in our American judicial system. We're held to these standards and we didn't even know that we were in trouble. But you know this, you better be careful on what you say and what you don't say.
Absolutely.
And in the other lesson, when you get to the lawyer, try not to say anything, let the lawyer do the talking.
Best advice. All right, if you have one of those questions or comments, just give us a call, 737-7587. We go back to the lines now. Don is on the line with us. Don, good evening. Do you have a question for Kevin?
Yes, I want to talk to him about the new abortion thing.
Okay, Don.
What's going on there?
All right, here's what I want to address on that, Don. When men's ideas and values change, the law changes. What does that really mean, Kev? Well, 50 years ago, 60 years ago, when Roe versus Wade went to the Supreme Court, guess what? There's arguments on both sides. Talented, skilled lawyers argued that. Yeah, and I bet if you and I were in there, they're making great arguments. Here's the point I want to take away from the questioning, and thank you for, asking, is what is right and what is wrong? It comes down to the eyes, what's in your eyes. Now, as a lawyer, they take every one of us. I've sworn in about over 150 lawyers in my career. When we take the oath, you're to uphold the Constitution of the U.S., and uphold the Constitution of this. That doesn't mean I can't say, hey, I can go through the court system and present my argument, but if the law is the law, I have to honor it and I have to tell Chuck. And you catch a lawyer that says, don't honor that, he's violating his very oath. So, now, I'll tell you one more thing that's come out of this that even shocks Kevin Kennedy, the lawyer. You'll watch national news and you got some DAs and they say, I don't care what that law says, I'm not going to prosecute. Good gracious, man. How can you say I'm going to stand on the law and then you don't? And what is selective prosecution? Let me explain that concept while we're here. So I want to hold those people accountable. I want to hold them responsible. You swore to uphold the law, you do it. What is selective prosecution? It's where, okay, there's 4 or 5 houses and they're all not doing what they're supposed to, but we're going to pick on this one because they're kin to Chuck Long and we had a personal hit, but everybody else gets away with it. But that's where we have a problem with the DA. One of the great things, if a district attorney in any state, in any county, if he refuses to follow the law, he should be voted out. And there should be a process implemented. They can remove judges, but some people are going to get to the point and they just say, I don't care what the law says, I won't do it. Now, inside you and I, there's a sense of justice, and we're not going to hang somebody out here for something that is not right. Couldn't make Chuck do it, couldn't make me do it.
And I tell you, that a lot of wisdom there, Kevin. And, you know, and again, it's like you were saying, it's about you take the oath to uphold the Constitution.
Yes.
I mean, it's kind of a bottom line.
It is a bottom line, and if you want to change it, then let's file our petitions and go argue.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much for calling in about that topic, Don. All right, let's go back to the lines right now. Keisha is on the line with us. Keisha, good evening. Do you have a question for Kevin?
Yes, sir. Thank you for taking my call.
Yeah, thank you.
Hey, how you doing,
Great.
Attorney Kennedy? I was wanting to know if you had any advice for anyone. I'm trying to locate my son's father, and I'm having a hard time with child support, being able to serve him.
I got you. Well, let me tell you about one idea that's out there, Keisha. There's a lot of different law firms that have access to a people search. It costs maybe $500, so you're going to spend some money. But if you could find the person and serve the person, then it was worth the $500, because the odds of you retrieving that money and back child support is great. So there's a number of people searches. You could call around and find out if they have access to that and invest in it, and they can locate. You know, when I'm at the National Trial Lawyers, they have scores of people who they don't do anything but specialize in assisting lawyers with their lawsuits. And so they'll say, well, for $250, I'll find the person. If I don't find them, you don't have to pay. Wow, that sounds like a pretty good deal.
People search. Okay, good to know. So thank you again for that question, Keisha. Now, I believe, I'm not sure if I heard the name right, but is it Hod that's on the line with us right now? Hod, are you with us?
Harold.
Harold, okay.
Come on,
I'm sorry
Harold.
about
Good
that.
to hear from you.
Well, good evening, Harold. Do you have a question for Kevin?
Yes. Hi, Chuck. Mr. Kennedy. I got a question and a comment.
Okay.
My question is, since they had the committee about President Trump,
Yep.
and they're trying to kick him out, they're trying to not let it be an election. I was wanting to know, this week they had a woman on there. Her last name, I don't recall her first name. I think her last name was Haskins. And she said something, and she said, "I heard." Would that be hearsay? And I'll hang up and listen. And my comment is, the little lady, that Miss Dorothy, that gave y'all the squash pickle, she's in ICU. Say a little prayer for her. Thank you. Have a good day.
Will do. Thank you, Harold.
Thank you. That was nice. And wow, that kind of took my breath away. We've had people send us some things. They're so nice. I love a spirit of generosity. I admire those people who are generous. You know, quite frankly, we are in the most unusual political environment in the last 10 years that this country has ever seen. We've all can agree we've seen things that we never saw before. These hearings are going on. You know, Kev, that's why we have cross-examination. It's been said no man can say the same lie twice the same way. Meaning that they're going to add something, they're going to hold it back. So do I believe people lie? One thing they even told us, statistically, we get almost told 200 lies a day. Most of the time it doesn't matter to us. They say, well, do you live in Clarksville? No, you live in a suburb. But it's the point. So do I believe people will lie? Absolutely. It's more lying going on than's ever been. Then what are we going to do about it? That's when you hire a skilled lawyer, and they've got to cross-examine them. Let them tell all the thorough details, and then we'll ask a question. You want to hear the secret? Then ask that same question with a little difference, because it's too hard to answer, and a skilled lawyer will detect untruths. Now, we don't really know. I'm not there. I'm not running the question. Of course, if I just asked Chuck 2 or 3 questions, I cross-examined it, but was I effective? Then Chuck's testimony would stand. That's what's going on. And who really knows unless there is a thorough investigation and cross-examination.
Needs to be thorough, needs to be cross-examined.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, we're going back to the lines with Don. Don, I believe you had a question that we didn't get to. So go ahead, Don. Ask Kevin the question.
Okay, I was trying to ask you the question, and then y'all cut me off on the phone right
Oh,
there.
we're
man.
sorry. Go ahead, Don.
I was asking a question about the abortion thing. Now, if a woman can't have abortions here in Tennessee, does that mean that a man can't get a vasectomy to, as a form of birth control? And if that's going to be the case, are they going to not allow women to order, birth control pills? I mean, these are topics, man, that's going to affect our society.
Yeah.
And this is going to affect, relationships, everything. This whole decision is going to affect everything, women's rights and everything.
You're right, Don, and we acknowledge, and you've identified a lot of great issues that are going to have to be discussed. Have every one of those issues been addressed that you just raised? No. But the law, here's the courts. We say, well, give us some answers. Don, you've got some great questions. And you know what the courts are going to say, the Court of Appeals, and goes, that is not an issue in front of us at this time. So they only deal with what issue. There could be a lot of great issues that we need the answers to, just like you posed. But until they are brought ripe in front of the Supreme Court, they won't rule. It's aggravating, it's disappointing. But on the other hand, there are so many laws that need addressed, they would address from now on. It's kind of like that law's black dictionary. It is so big, if we put every word in there, the documents would be impossible to control. So you have done an excellent job in identifying those issues, and it's yet to be seen how the courts will interpret it.
And I think, and thanks so much for calling back, Don. We appreciate that. But and I think every day something is probably going to change.
It's, new things
Kentucky
are issues,
and Florida, already they put a stop. They at first were going to put the abortion, as far as it being banned, into effect, and now they put a stop on that because they're looking at other things. So that's kind of what you're saying, is every day things are going to just change.
There's going to be a ton of issues that have not been addressed, just like Don raised, that they're going to have to be. That's why there's so many lawsuits. You said, well, you address this in state versus this. And they're going to say, well, our case is different because there's a slight difference on the vasectomy that you brought up or whatever contraceptive controversy it is.
All right, so a lot of people talking about that, so thanks again for calling in about that. We're going to take a short break. If you have a question, we have a little time left. We want to make sure you get those questions in. Numbers on your screen, 737-7587. You're watching Open Line.